just make sure this is recording. I don't think it is. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the first Pod Stallions of 2019. I am Brian, and with me, as always, is Jason.
Hello, everybody.
Oh, you left me hanging there. I was a little worried. Happy New Year, Jason.
Happy New Year to you, sir.
We have not spoken much.
We have not spoken much.
Yeah.
We have been busy with lives, but it's good to hear your voice, and it's fun to keep doing this, and we love it more and more as the years go on.
Yeah,
and
I'm more excited than ever to be doing this year. We have a new Facebook group for Pod Stallions that seems to be growing every day, and we're going to keep going with more episodes this year.
Yes, we're stepping up. We got an extra a few bucks in the budget.
That's right. We got a new stipend.
Money.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Yep. We got $8 now.
We're doing it.
Yeah. So, as we have always done with tradition, our January episode is called the Retro Awards, and we give praise and props to things in pop culture via movies, DVDs, magazines, books, and, of course, toys, and talk about our favorites of the year. It's actually... This one might be the one where I did the most homework, because I got up early this morning and stressed about it and sat there thinking about things. So I've boned up, Jason.
I'm with you. I did too, because again, I was having that. We're in this world now where a movie can come out and the DVD can hit the same year, and so I'm trying to go was it a movie that came out that year? Was that a DVD that hit, or when did it what? And so I kind of made my list earlier this morning too.
Yeah,
all my loves and stuff.
I actually also got diagnosed this year with ADHD, which explains a lot about me. Which focusing is a real struggle. So this was a very helpful exercise. I went through lists of movies and TV that were released this year. So
okay, you went to a source and then kind of checked off what you.
Yeah.
I
just
kind
so I
of
didn't
did
forget
the same
anything.
thing.
Yeah.
I did it. I looked through a quick year-end magazine, and then I looked through DVDs and stuff. But I think I've got this fairly nailed down. So, do you want to start with what do you want to start with? You want to start with movies?
Yeah, let's do movies, because I actually have a pretty good list this year. But you go. What was I do a top three. You do a top three.
I did 5.
Oh,
and
wow,
I did
shit.
5. Yeah, no, it's okay. I did. Here's the thing. I can easily make that top 3, and then make the other 2, special mentions.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. I did top 3. We have to have more meetings.
So you want to go? Do you want to go? You want to go 1 to 3 or 3 to 1? How do you want to do it?
Let's do 3 to 1. So
all right. So you do 3, and then I'll do 3, and then back and forth, right?
Okay. Yeah. Sure. So,
okay.
The idea of this is things that evoke a retro, a Plaid Stallions-y type of thing. And I think my number 3 movie has to be Aquaman.
Oh, wow. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, you see, I was there day one with my whole family, oddly, because, I never thought I'd see an Aquaman movie in the theater, but the adding of Jason Momoa brought my wife to the theater. It's not a perfect movie. I don't know what is, but for DC, I would say it's fantastic. It really just kind of leaned into the character, gave it a almost like a, I want to say like a John Carter sort of feel to it. All these different lands and different characters, and. Jason Momoa is not who I pictured playing Aquaman. And, the character is... But it works. It all just kind of worked. And there's a point in the film, I'm not going to give any spoilers out because you haven't seen it. He jumps on a seahorse at the end. And that should have been ridiculous, but it just worked. Everything about it for me... I liked the characterization. The character in Justice League was a little bit silly, and the characterization in this film, they kind of changed it a little bit. gave him some motivation, gave him a backstory, and like I said, it all just sort of, all those pieces sort of worked for me, and I was a little kid watching a movie, an Aquaman movie, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, and that was
I have heard very little, and I've avoided it because I don't really want to know. But what it appears to me is that there's a conscious effort to bring the fun factor up, which was kind of missing from, I think, the DC stuff. And oddly enough, the one thing I did see that I thought, oh, that's interesting, was someone said the movie that first comes to mind to really compare it to is Flash Gordon.
Yes.
That sense of fun and color.
All these kingdoms and different characters, and they just unabashedly go for it. And it's in the DCU, you get that mention, but it doesn't really feel connected in any way because you're underwater and there's different kingdoms, and they just have enough to do there. And I'm very happy it made $1 billion. I'm very happy it's successful because while I think the DC...
Did it make that much?
Oh yeah, it's doing very well. I think that I'm just a fan. So I won't probably...
Well, that gives me...
What's that?
That's an endorsement for me. That's a nice endorsement for me to hear. That's good.
Mm-hmm. It's very long, mind you, but that's okay. I enjoyed it. I will buy that. I haven't bought many of the DCU movies on Blu-ray. Okay, I bought Justice League. But I'll buy this one for absolutely certain. I really want to watch this on Blu-ray. Excellent nice movie. And there's actually some really good horror in the film as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was a perfect segue. Speaking of segues, my number 3 is something that I've mentioned on here before, and in the spirit of the retro kind of vibe, is a British film called Ghost Stories.
Oh, yeah.
That I mentioned a few episodes back. I think a Halloween episode, we talked about stuff. And it was based on a show in the West End, a live show. I don't know exactly how similar the show is to the film, but it was done by a guy called Andy Nyman and Jeremy Dyson, who was the 4th member of League of Gentlemen who's never on camera. They wrote it, and I think co-directed it. Paul Whitehouse from The Fast Show is in it. He's one of my favorite people of all time. Martin Freeman is in it. And the kid, you'll recognize this kid that's in it from one of the Black Mirror episodes. He's just fantastic, this kid. And Andy Nyman is on camera as well. And if people don't know who Andy Nyman is, he, when Charlie Brooker, who did Black Mirror, did Dead Set, the first show the scripted show that he did about the zombie apocalypse, in the Big Brother house. Andy Nyman was the producer of the Big Brother show, and he's really kind of an animal, kind of an asshole in that. But he also designs. I don't know what's the term. Who's the guy that does psychic stuff? The stage shows that he does in England. He's bald. I can't think of his name right now, but Andy Nyman helps design illusions and things for these shows. But they're both massive, massive horror fans. And Ghost Stories is a portmanteau.
Oh, fantastic.
The initial sort of kickoff is Andy Nyman's character is a paranormal debunker. And then someone comes to him and says, I've got 3 cases here that I could never solve. Go solve them. And then you go to each individual that he starts to interview, and you go into their story. And it is terrifying. It is scary in a way that it's hard. What it is it's not gory scary. It's just good old-fashioned jump out of your seat scariness. And the thing that was really interesting about it too is that 95% of the movie is practical effects. They made a conscious choice not to go. So you're almost seeing the stage show, and it's just wonderful. It's one of those things that you pick up more on a repeat viewing, where you start to notice things that come into the sort of climax, and then you start picking things up, throughout. But my friend Paul, who I'm sure, he might be listening right now. Around Halloween, I brought it to his place and put it on to watch. And he's not a big he's not a big scary movie guy. But about midway, you know, there's some really good jumps, and he turned to me and he's like, "Tell me again why we're watching this movie." Like, I don't need the, you know. So that's a big endorsement right there, but it's great. And it reminds me, you know, these guys grew up on Hammer and Amicus and love that kind of, you know, gothic horror and stuff too. It's just wonderful. So that would be my number 3.
What was that called again?
Ghost Stories.
Ghost Stories.
Yeah.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah, I think right now it's on...
well, that was your number 3.
Might be on Hulu or something, I think.
Oh, okay, I don't get Hulu here in...
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's somewhere. It's somewhere, but it's on DVD and stuff. But yeah, that was my number 3. So what's your number 2?
My number 2 is The Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Nice!
I don't get out to the movies much, especially this year. I didn't really have a lot of time, but... and, you know, I would watch things, but I'm starting to become a bit of a snob about films, and I love the Coen brothers. They challenge me, and Ballad of Buster Scruggs was not... It did, like... It's a portmanteau, which I really like. Did you see it?
Yeah. Yes, I did. I watched it twice, actually.
Yeah, and I do like the Coen brothers, even when I don't like them, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
And
this
movie challenged me, and I enjoyed it. It's a bit of a downer. The 2 highlights for me are the opening scenes. The opening story is great, and then Tom Waits, who is severely underused in everything.
I agree.
He basically, by himself, makes the whole story. I mean, he is just by himself for 90% of that story. Here I am. I never thought I would have picked a Western, because I'm not a big Western guy. But yeah, I really enjoyed that film, and you know, I love superhero movies just like everybody else, and I'm, you know, this year that was probably my it was more interesting to me than anything else that came out. I really enjoyed it.
The Coen brothers, to me, I know people don't think this is a weird sort of analogy to make, but because I'm a huge Beatles fan and McCartney fan, McCartney, when McCartney would put stuff out in the early 70s, he just got torn to shreds. I mean, he could not do anything without the critics going crazy and, you know, how dare you, this is what a waste of time, these are half-baked or whatever. And then, you know, 10 years later, people start picking up on things that he did in early records, and, you know, Beck comes out and says, if it weren't for those first couple of records, I wouldn't have a recording career, and da-da-da-da-da. There's some artists, I think, have a way to kind of see around the corner. And the Coen brothers have this thing that, this is just my theory and what I've said, you know, for years, is sometimes they hit with something and it hits you right away. And then sometimes it's a slow burn. Yeah. And Bowski is a perfect example of that. Hail Caesar as well. I remember seeing it when it came out, and I thought, not bad. On repeat viewings, it just gets better and better and better, and you see how intricate the script is. It does. It really does.
I only recently watched that about 6 months ago, and my wife and I, my wife said, what did we just watch? And I go, I don't know, but I kind of enjoyed the journey. You know, sometimes it's just about the journey.
That's it right there.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I watch it again and sort of just keep your eye on Brolin, because it's kind of told through Brolin, sort of, and just the zaniness of these characters, and sort of, you know, it is kind of, I mean, I didn't pick all of it up until the second viewing, just who was doing what and how this guy knew him and and again, it's kind of heady stuff, you know, the communists and, you know, getting stuff into scripts and whatever, but it's also got that, you know, heightened Coen Brothers stuff. Well, with this movie, to me, it was like, it got me right away. But when I watched it a second time, each one of them I appreciated more. But the one I appreciated more the most is the one with the dog and the romance. And I'm not going to give anything away here, but the wagon, the covered wagon trail.
Bummer.
But I mean, when it kicks off, when that climax kicks off,
yeah, it
is the choreography on that, and this guy who I've never seen in anything before, who barely says a word in the entire piece, all of a sudden kicks in, and it's one of the best things the Coen brothers have ever done. Just that sequence.
Yeah.
But man, is it a roller coaster? This movie, like it's got all kinds of stuff going on. The one that's hardest to watch is the one with Liam Neeson, which I find very hard to watch.
It is hard. But like still, I didn't say it's a feel good film. It challenged me a little bit.
It does. Yeah. And they're very, very good at doing that. And I'm happy to live in a world where the Coen brothers are still, even at their least interesting, they're still more interesting than 90% of what's out there, from my mind.
Absolutely. Really enjoyed the film. And that's why it's in my top 3 this year. So what is your top?
And I might be biased
because
they're from Minnesota, but there you have it. Okay, so my number 2, it's probably not a huge shock to anybody, but it's Avengers Infinity War.
Oh, yeah.
And, for me, I think kind of like with DC with you, like, I think you were more of a DC guy than Marvel, right? Kind of growing up? Were you more DC?
I flip-flopped. As a child, I really loved the Marvel, the Fantastic Four, the Captain America and Falcon. But they were together, and Spider-Man and Iron Man. I lost Marvel in the 80s. I didn't really like Marvel in the 80s very much because I don't like X-Men, and I don't care for the Punisher and those characters. But yes, I loved. And by the way, I'm not being that snooty. I kind of stayed away from Infinity War because I thought either A, you were going to choose it, or B, and I'm happy you did, or B, that I didn't want to both be choosing that. It's a good movie. It's a very entertaining movie, and I love the Russo brothers' work with the Marvel. It is that is a terrific film.
The logistics, juggling of people say, well, like, do I have to have seen all of them to know it? Okay, no, but it's getting closer now where you kind of really do have to track on previous characters and things that are happening. And the thing that is really sexy about this, beyond the scope of it and everything that happens in it and the culmination of 10 years of movies and all this stuff, which we're not even quite done yet with, is as a viewer, you're being rewarded. Like, you're hearing little things, or you're seeing little things, or the shoe is kind of dropping in certain ways, that you're being rewarded for taking the journey to begin with from 10 years ago and saying they know where they're going. This is headed in a direction. It's going to pay off, and it's never going to be satisfying to 100% of the audience. No. But I've said this a million times, and I know I've said it on the show too. I think people are going to look back at this period and the 10 years, what Marvel Studios has undertaken, and there's never been anything like it in the history of Hollywood.
It's been many people are trying to now knock it off. Which is kind of like that, and I think it's so funny how bad it is. I that Tom Cruise Mummy movie, which I didn't super duper hate, but it just was trying to jam a universe in now. There was no patience. Yeah, it was.
In other words, people are there's a lot of, we're going to launch this thing, and within the first film, we're going to drop little things in that will never get paid off, but we're telling you there's more to come. What Marvel did was roll the dice and think, boy, I hope when they did that tag with Sam Jackson at the end of Iron Man, I want to talk to you about the Avengers. They were hoping that this thing was going to work, and if it did, this is where we were going. And then, of course, it got bigger and better and bigger and better, and now it's like, I love it when people talk about, you got to try this show, and you got to, it takes a couple episodes to get into, and I like it when you get to the end of, even if it's just a season, you can have some open-ended stuff, but when you get the feeling that whoever made this had it laid out and really knew where they were going with it.
And the idea of a real plan.
And beyond all the bells and whistles with why I love this movie so much and everybody in it, and again, as if I'm opening up a comic book from my childhood where everybody's jumping in to fight this thing. It's just, and here's the other thing, because I heard from somebody said they went to see it. I don't know if they posted or sent me a text or something, and near them were a mom and dad and a couple of kids. Well, they said the kids were bawling at the end of the movie.
Oh yeah,
and,
it's dark.
And it's like, I mean, we may know as adults or have an idea where this stuff is headed and will it, won't it, whatever. But if you're 8, 9 years old or 10 years old or, 12 or whatever, and you've seen all these on DVD or seen at the theaters or whatever, and you get that ending, I mean, holy shit, that's a bold thing to do.
Dare I say that is one of the boldest pop culture endings since Empire Strikes Back.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, okay, yeah, where they basically, and I mean, we grew up in the early 70s where downer endings happened every week on a movie, but not when you like pop culture is usually spoon-fed to you. And to have the hero lose, to have Spider-Man die I hope everyone's seen Avengers Infinity Wars, in Tony Stark's arms is just so good an idea. Like, it is so, like, wow, that's going to scare some kids, that's going to make some, and in fact, I'm worried about seeing the next one because I'm positive that Captain America is going to die, and I don't want that.
I keep thinking that.
Yeah,
me either.
I'm 48 years old, and I'm like all worried about whether or not a fictional character dies.
And then I think to myself, well, maybe they know we're thinking that, and so they're not going to, because he was kind of in the background in this one, and we know that he and Tony had a falling out, and someone's going to have to get back. But the beauty of it is, I don't know where this is going. I don't want to know. I don't know how they're going to wrap this up, but I know that. Like, did you see Ant-Man and the Wasp?
Yeah, and I kind of wished I hadn't in the theater, to be perfectly honest with you.
I didn't see it in the theater. I one of the only ones that I hadn't seen in the theater. I got on, so I didn't know anything about it. And when it came to that sting at the end, the post-credit thing, I just all of a sudden got slapped. Like, I kind of forgot.
That was crazy good. Yeah.
I kind of forgot that, like, oh shit, and then that happened, and you're like, oh my God. The planning of this, the logistics, and the keeping it quiet and everything is just extraordinary. So I don't know how the next phase is ever going to be as exciting or gorgeous as this phase was. The variety that we got. I don't know where it's going to go, but I love that we're going to get this other shoe dropping in April or May or whatever. And there you go. There's 10 years of an adventure of all this stuff,
Absolutely.
So what's your number one?
My number one is going to surprise you because I really thought about a film I've watched twice this year, and what did I like about it? It is A Futile and Stupid Gesture.
Wait! I've seen this. Wait, tell me what this is again.
This is the biopic of the creation of National Lampoon. It is directed by David Wayne, one of my favorite directors, who, of course, did Wet Hot American Summer, The 10, was part of Stella. I love David Wayne, and I love National Lampoon. I grew up on National Lampoon, and he really did a fantastic job of capturing what that was like. I watched the beautiful documentary they did a couple years ago, and I just absolutely loved this film. Did you?
Yeah, it was great. I saw it, and I know the documentary sort of by heart because there was a time where I watched it over and over again. I just love that footage, and I love the madness of what was going on. And
I love the radio show as a kid, and and I idolized Bill Murray and Chevy Chase, so. Yeah, that movie was like, this is for you, Brian. And yeah, it was great. It was super great. It could have been 10 hours long for me.
And they got a lot in to the movie. They got a lot of detail in, with Doug and where his life went, and they got a lot of information in. Yeah, I thought it was fun. I thought the documentary to me is the casting was great.
Yeah.
Everybody in it was great.
The best it could have possibly been. I couldn't get over that one personally. That was my favorite film.
Oh wow! That's a great number one. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Well, that's what happens when you get up at 5 a.m. What is your number one?
this probably won't come as much of a surprise to anyone who is listening to the show.
Oh, I know it.
Or you. But my number one of the year is Solo, a Star Wars story.
I think that movie got the shaft this year.
It got the shaft.
Yeah.
And it's great to see at the end of the year how it's showing up on certain lists or certain Twitter accounts that are going, let's everybody take a look at this again. Or, Total Film just had the best action sequences of the year, and they put the train heist sequence in there. And for me, this was something that I was completely against when it was first announced. I wanted nothing to do with it. I thought it was a stupid idea. Han Solo is one of my heroes, and Harrison Ford, you can't, why, just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. There's no need to do this. And then once those guys got fired, because I heard Lego guys, no offense to the Lego guys, the thing that they did that is most extraordinary is casting Alden Ehrenreich, because they picked the perfect
Hail
guy.
Caesar very much.
He was great in Hail Caesar. And but when they got let go, I thought, okay, Ron, you need someone like Ron Howard to come in and do something like this, because to me, this movie is the most pure joy Star Wars movie since, and I know joy is the wrong word to use, since The Empire Strikes Back. This to me is better than Return of the Jedi. Much as I love Jedi, there's a huge chunk of Jedi that I want nothing to do with, and I think you probably know which sequences I'm talking about.
I think everyone knows what sequences you're talking about.
This was clearly written by the guy that has put the best words in Han Solo's mouth in the movie, and his kid. And there is a template, and you see it throughout the thing: film noir, a heist movie, a western, a little bit of femme fatale in there, like. They're wearing the influences on their sleeve, but they're putting it in very subtle ways. I love the casting, and I think it really, as good as the script is, and as great as the pace is, it hinges on Alden Ehrenreich's performance, because it's never an impression. He's not trying to. He's getting mannerisms, and he's getting looks, and he's got the swagger, but he's never trying to sound like Harrison Ford or doing an impression of any kind.
What he's giving out that I got was a vibe.
A vibe, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You don't, and that's what, so the more I would see about this movie, and when I first saw it, like the first trailer, I remember thinking, oh, okay, well now I might be getting interested in this. And as it went on, and, I think there's, again, I don't want to harp on it, there's no secret how I felt about The Last Jedi and where things were sort of going. But this, to me, I could watch 10 years of movies in this world, in this, nobody mentions the Jedi, nobody talks about the Force. It's just like, let's go steal some shit and, rob some banks and, drop some drugs off or whatever.
That was what was welcome to me is, this is the first one without any Jedi in it or any mention of Jedi, really.
Yeah.
And, Now, mind you, I saw a bootleg copy, and it wasn't really great because the movie is very dark, and I have yet to re-watch the film at all. But
please do. Yeah,
I plan to sit down and just watch it because I didn't see it in the theater. My son went and saw it in the theater, but the takeaway I got from it was: do you remember when like the Star Wars comics came out and the
yes.
And like Roy Thomas, and he had the they focused a lot on Han Solo, and they had like that rabbit, and that's the vibe I got from this. And
there is a list that when it got released onto DVD, John Kasdan, who co-wrote it with Lawrence Kasdan, his dad, put out this list of like 50 little bullet points to say, now that it's out on DVD, here's some more background into where some of this came from. Look for this little bit in the back of the room. That's actually the skull from the cover of Han Solo and the Lost Legacy, the Brian Daley book. Look for this and look for that. And one of the points is on Kessel, when the shootout kicks off and Lando yells, and by the way, Lando calls him Han, not Han, calls him Han, just like Billy D. Williams did in both movies. He throws, Han, and he throws him a gun. Han grabs the blaster and they start shooting in front of the Falcon. A bullet point for him was, that was our homage to those 70s Star Wars comics and the covers where there was like a battle going on in the front and Han is with these mercenaries and they're doing whatever. They had that stuff in mind with this movie. They were thinking about those adventures that we got in the 70s. And it's that era that you and I love, that era between Star Wars and Empire where it's a bit of a wilderness. And we got these weird things, you know, the comic strip. Yeah.
Now, mind you, I could have done without Sassy Robot, but that didn't drive me as crazy as it seemed to drive the internet. You know,
I didn't. You know,
what do you think? What do you think kind of killed that movie? Like, why did it bomb? Because it doesn't deserve to bomb.
No, it doesn't. And here's well, number one, I would only in the world of Star Wars movies making $1 billion. Only in that world would you consider it a bomb.
No, you're right. You're right.
But that's the term that everybody used. Number two, they shot 60% of this movie and scrapped it and started over again. So the budget inflated from that. So had that not happened, so you got that in addition with, regarding the budget. However, they made a huge mistake releasing it 6 months after Last Jedi. They were trying to do this Marvel universe building thing, and I think it was a big mistake. But more than that, and I want to preface this again, I cannot be more clear about this. No matter how much I disliked, let's say, one of the prequels, nothing would have stopped me from seeing the final prequel. Nothing is going to stop me from... I mean, I love Star Wars so much that as much as it's let me down, there's no way I'm not going to see a thing. And partly because I have this sick need to see something before I badmouth it with them. So, in other words, no matter how much I disliked Last Jedi, and I saw Last Jedi in the theater 3 times because I really, really tried with this movie. Much as I disliked it, nothing was going to stop me once I got keen about Solo to not see Solo. There was a huge chunk of whether they're radical or they're right or wrong or angry or whatever it is, or even casual Star Wars fans that were so upset about The Last Jedi that I think they wanted to punish Star Wars and not go see it.
Do you think they moved the needle? Because as much as I think fans do have some influence, I think the bigger thing is fatigue from Star Wars. Like,
I think...
we forget ourselves in that we are not that. We're Legion, but we're not that big. If something wants to be a hit, it'll be a hit. Like the general public.
Yeah, but here's the other thing. This thing had the deck stacked against it. I mean, can you name me a time
in a bad press
where a film was greenlit, they shot 60% of it, and then fired the directors and started over again.
Yeah.
And that story never should have gotten out there. And once it did, they should have gotten out in front of it in so many ways that they didn't. And people started to smell that and go, oof, this is going to be bad.
I agree with you. I think that's where it died, is that there was this kind of blood in the water from firing a director and big budget.
Yeah.
It waterworlded itself a little bit in the fact that people stayed away because they heard it was going to suck. I don't think the boycott had as much as people who get this wrapped up in pulp culture think it did.
But I'm saying I know people that I had to convince to go see it.
Yeah.
That once they saw it, they were like, "Oh man, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
You're right. That was great." But the reason they hadn't seen it was because of how much they disliked the last movie.
Yeah.
They were so upset about it. And again, I'm not defending that or saying that's how you should live your life. I don't. My thing is like, come on, you got to at least give the next one. Like, there's no way I'm not seeing episode 9. There's no way. I don't care. Like, I have to see this thing. But I think there's a bit of that. And the fatigue thing is interesting because when you think about it, like it's not like we've gotten a ton of Star Wars. We got 3 movies, then we got 3 more, 15 years later. Then we got 1, and then 1, and then 1. So if anything, the fans should sort of eat it up and go, I'll take more of this. I want more of this.
Yeah.
So the fatigue thing, there could be something there. I just don't know if...
I don't mean fans. I don't mean fans at all. I mean, like, fans can't push this as far as I think the general public can, right? And
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. And I think that general public, part of it is that general public sort of, I saw the last one. It was ridiculous. I'm not doing this again. I'm not going to.
Or I just saw Star Wars, and I don't want to see another one. And, maybe 6 months was just too aggressive. I think there's more to that.
That absolutely.
I know some people didn't like The Last Jedi. I don't let pop culture piss me off, so it's alien to me. I didn't like it, but I own it. I bought it. I own the DVD. Like nothing is going to get me to burn my my Beatle records or whatever. But he did say he was bigger than Jesus.
Right, that is true. Yeah, there was that one period that I started burning stuff. But I do think it's going to be one of these things, like many things that I've loved throughout my life, that is a sleeper.
Yep.
And that people will start coming back to, like The Rocketeer and like Flash Gordon, and Bedazzled was torn apart when it came out. And then as the years went on, people went, "This is a freaking great movie. Like, what's the problem?" Like, I think it's going to be one of those movies that people catch up with. And it was just the wrong combination of things to happen, I think. But it's a wonderful movie, and it reminds me of the stories that I loved. The movie that I loved when it came out.
I enjoyed it more than I liked anything that has come out from the Star Wars Disney. And I haven't been highly critical of any of it, but that was enjoyable. I had fun with it.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Well, there's our movie.
Yeah.
Oh, can I just add one more movie?
Yeah.
Just as an honorable mention, because you know how we always talk about these times we live in this world where, like, I can't believe I live in a world where I can see this or that, or like, Daniel Craig is in a movie with Harrison Ford or whatever. I can't believe I now live in a world where not only is there a Queen movie that was made, Bohemian Rhapsody, that took 10 years to make, but it's really good, and he's fantastic in it, and now it's got Oscar buzz, and it's made 500 million worldwide. That is, as a kid, if you're like, I'd like to see a movie about those guys, and now it exists, and not only that, but it's huge. That's my honorable mention, is Bohemian Rhapsody. It reminds me of being a kid and listening to Queen. Yeah.
I should have known that would be in here somewhere. I haven't seen that yet.
Okay, so Okay, well, you will eventually, I'm sure.
Let's move on.
You want to do TV? Or what do you want to do?
TV,
DVD?
yeah.
Okay.
I'm just going to kind of go quickly here. Number 3 for me is Mystery Science Theater. I was extremely skeptical of how much I would enjoy a new cast. And then it was like an old shoe that you put on and it still fits and it's nice. And they did a season where they had 6 new episodes. And I devoured them in less than a week. It's safe to say that I really like Jonah Ray, and I really like the new version of Mystery Science Theater.
So can you just, in a nutshell, because I've yet to see it, and I know that the old show pretty, not like you do, but I know, what is it about it that, what of it fit and made you feel like this is the show, and what of it was sort of, there's a little something different here that, I don't mind these new people or whatever. Like, how did it...
To be perfectly honest with you, when I heard about the cast of Felicia Day, Jonah Ray, and Patton Oswalt, I thought, this is stunt casting and terrible. And I had all these thoughts of like, this is going to suck. And then I watched it and I didn't care. Like, nobody drew me out of it. And it just felt like the show had never stopped airing.
oh wow.
And it, that's basically it. It still felt like a cheap show from Minnesota that was on a basic cable, and I give them credit. I nobody annoys me, and I'm not the world's. I don't hate her, but Felicia Day is not my favorite person in the entire world, and. Nothing about the show bothers me one bit. She's great, and
it's a success, right? I mean, by all accounts,
it's hard to tell. Netflix doesn't reveal their numbers, but it seems to be very favorably viewed. And to be perfectly honest with you, I just love it. I think it's fantastic. And
I mean, they're doing more, is what I mean.
Yeah. There's 6 more coming out this year, and I hope they keep going. I think it's fantastic, and kudos to everybody involved. I think it's great.
Excellent. Okay, then my number 3 I'm looking at my list here and realizing I wrote 5. Okay, so my number 3 would be Homecoming.
Oh,
show on. Did you see it?
yes.
You did.
Yeah,
okay.
Now, parts of it. My wife watched it, so I watch it by osmosis.
And I saw the billboards and I saw the trailer, and I have to tell you, I kind of thought, I don't know what this is about. It looks like a therapy session or something. I'm not sure. I'm not a big Julia Roberts guy, but because they were short episodes, they were like 30, 35-minute episodes, I thought, well, I'm going to give this a shot. And 2 episodes in, I was hooked. I didn't know what this was about or where this was going. And again, it's one of those things that when you get to the end of it, it is as if they had a big dry erase board and said, here's where we're going to end. Let's go back over here to the left side of the board and start filling in where we're going. And it all sort of, when it did kind of wrap up, you were like, wow, that was a pretty complete journey. But I have another reason for thinking it was really cool. I was watching, I think I was about 4 episodes in, and I heard this music cue that I was like, oh, that sounds familiar. And sort of let it go. And then later in the episode, there's another music cue, and it was like, no, I know what that is. And then I'm like, that's music from All the President's Men. What the hell is music from All the President's Men doing in this show? Well, once the show was done, I looked it up. And the guy who created the show is the guy who did Mr. Robot. Sam Ismail, I think. And the entire series of Homecoming, they use music cues from previous movies, specifically from that sort of early 70s to mid 70s period of conspiracy thrillers.
So it's
so all the music in the show, it's intentional. Yes, they said it had never been done before, and it was incredibly difficult, trying to license this stuff, and very costly. But that's what he wanted to do. I wanted, this is my sort of homage to such things, and they had to get all the music licensed. It all exists from previous sort of, movies, thrillers that existed in the 70s. I thought that was pretty freaking neat.
That is an amazing attention to detail. My wife recommends it to all her friends, by the way. So, yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Okay. Well, there you go. Well, tell her I'm with her.
Yeah, no, she'll. I think actually, when she thought to check it out, I said, "Oh, Jason says that's really good." So, I think we've already been there. My number
Fantastic.
2 is the Orville, and the reason it is because I don't like Star Trek: The Next Generation. I've never liked Star Trek: The Next Generation. I find it boring. I find it bland. I think that Roddenberry's plan to take conflict out of people made them dry and unrelatable. And I don't want to fight anybody on this who thinks Picard. Like, I realize that I think Star Trek: The Next Generation is probably even more popular than the original Star Trek, but it never worked for me. So when I was watching Seth MacFarlane's kind of take on it, I thought I'm not going to, I don't know if I'm going to dig this or not. And it is just a carbon copy of Star Trek: The Next Generation, but it has very relatable, likable characters. And for some reason, that just jives with me. And I like the show very much. It is, now back, and I think the world of that show. I mean, I watch it every week, and I don't watch anything every week. So,
Well, you're not alone.
No.
I got to tell you, because I watched the first 2 episodes, and it didn't grab me. I am not a Family Guy guy, and I'm not anti-Seth MacFarlane by any means. Ted, I saw in the theater, and it knocked me out because I thought it was so insane and ridiculous, and of course the Flash Gordon thing. And so he gets a pass for me. I saw the Western thing. I don't think I laughed once. And this one,
he said,
I like the detail of it. And I was just, this to me seems like it doesn't know quite if it wants to be a wacky thing or if it's an adventure thing. And there's room for both. You can certainly do both. But the people have sort of latched onto it, so I feel like I owe to pick it up, like maybe this second season, and start watching it and see, because people seem to they think it's a huge hit, and people seem to really dig it.
It's entertaining. And, I think that's that's probably more than anything. It's just I enjoy watching it for an hour. There's escapism, there's adventure. It's not a big downer, and that we've forgotten, I think, a little bit of that in this age. That there has to be some fun in these shows, or else why are you watching them?
Yeah, we need, God knows we need more escapism and more fun right now. So I agree. Okay, so am I on number 2 now? Yeah. Okay, my number 2 is The Terror, which was on AMC.
Oh, yeah.
Executive produced by Ridley Scott. Mm-hmm. And I think it was 8 episodes or 10, I forget. I can't recommend it enough. It's basically the story of these 2 British ships trying to find the Northwest Passage, and they misjudge the journey, and they're stranded. And this is a true story where these 2 ships got stranded in the Arctic, and what's his name? Isn't it Richard Harris's son, Jared Harris, who's just, I would watch that guy read the phone book. He's so good in it. All mostly male cast because they're on these ships. Yeah. British cast. But you're watching as it goes on the survival, the stiff upper lip, the British soldier, and like keep your nails clean, and we got to this and that, and yet we're the food is maybe going rotten and some of it's running out, and it goes on and on and on. But in addition, there is something out in the wild in the Arctic that it's hunting these men. And when it kicks off, when this violence happens, or the I don't want to say too much about what's out there, but when it comes, it is riveting television. Like the choreography, the action stuff in some of these sequences, and it's all, I think most of it is studio bound, and that they do something amazing with the setting where you just kind of feel you're off in the middle of nowhere in the Arctic, and it's scary stuff. But it's again a beginning, a middle, and an end. I don't know if they're ever going to do more. But so they took this guy that wrote the book took a real incident, just because they found the remnants, many hundreds of years later, they found the remnants of the bones and this, and that all told the story of what happened to these crews. And it gets beyond what's out there. It gets worse with what these people do to each other and stuff.
No kidding, eh?
So it's a survival. Yeah, it's but really well done. So it's good horror. It's good character stuff. Just beautifully done. So I recommend that highly.
Oh, check that out, actually.
What's your number 1?
My number 1 is Venture Brothers. This year's...
Nice.
I was actually kind of on the outs with Venture Brothers when I heard the new season was coming. The last season wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. And I thought maybe the dew was off the lily, like it was over. And this season was so fantastic because, like you said earlier with talking about the Marvel, these guys have clearly always had a plan with this. And they were blowing my mind with the interconnectivity of everything. And still making it entertaining and funny, and still watching the characters grow. And it almost had very little to do with the actual Venture Brothers. But I really seriously enjoyed this season to where I didn't want it to end. It was just that good. And
I felt like there were some callbacks that
insane
were real callbacks that went way deep.
I had to watch the show with my phone. To go, oh shit, yeah,
right, right,
and none of it felt cheesy. Like it all felt like they were thinking this through.
Oh, sorry, that was Bowie was just saying that he enjoyed that show too.
He's a huge Venture Brothers fan.
Yeah, he's a huge Venture Brothers fan, and he just wanted to chime in. Sorry about that. Problem. Sorry, continue.
No, that was it. That was it. I really enjoyed that. So, what was your number 1?
Here's the thing.
Doctor Who?
It depends. Every episode of Doctor Who, the best it's ever been. No, this is the tricky bit. I don't know if Inside Number 9's last season was last year or the year before. If it was last year, I'm picking Inside number 9.
I don't even know what that is.
Well, I've talked about it a couple of times. Inside number 9 is an anthology show. It was even before Black Mirror, the first season that they did. Well, Black Mirror sort of existed, but before everybody knew there was going to be like a series, anthology series that Netflix was going to do. And it's Steve Pemberton and Reese Shearsmith from The League of Gentlemen.
Ah, okay.
They did the Psychoville, and it's an anthology show. And the only thing that's sort of the connecting thread is the number 9. So in the camera at the beginning of an episode, it pushes into a house, and it just says, it's got the number 9 out front.
Oh, I see. Season 4 began Jan 2nd, 2018. So you're right in the lines there.
Oh, okay, great. So then I'll okay. So it is not only brilliant and very funny, but it like good anthology shows, it can sort of go anywhere. In other words, there's something sort of either supernatural or horror or macabre or, sort of murder mystery maybe within them. But it can be something that's, during the witch trials, one episode. It can be something in a karaoke bar where most of it... I mean, they did one this past season that was kicks off... It's all in iambic pentameter. The characters speak in iambic pentameter in a hotel, on the floor of a hotel, going in and out of rooms and turning to the camera and giving their speech to the camera, and then back to like you're watching a Shakespeare play, kind of. They've done one that's silent with just music, and they did something, and I think that now season 1 and 2 I think are on Amazon Prime. 3 and 4, I believe you have to have BritBox, which is part of Amazon Prime or something.
I don't have that.
But they did an episode on Halloween. They did a live Inside number 9 on Halloween night in the UK, and it blew up Twitter. What they did to the media, how they played with the medium and made it essential viewing. Like you can't, you have to be watching it now, and this is what's going on. And what they did to viewers, millions of viewers in the audience, they're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant. And they, there's one episode where you're watching what clearly looks like a BBC, a horror anthology type episode that the BBC would have done in the early 70s. So it looks like early Doctor Who, okay? And then you're the audience watching this, and you hear audio commentary throughout the whole, and every now and then the screen stops, and you hear the audio commentary. See, now right there, you see that's why the food was cold, and that actor didn't want to eat it. But let me tell you what happens next, or whatever. And there's always a sort of O. Henry twist at the end, like, Twilight Zone. But what they did was they got equipment. They got those old BBC cameras and lighting equipment, and they did it as if it would have been a show in the early 70s.
Wow.
So I can't recommend it enough, and it gets better. And they're just doing read-throughs of season 5, and they're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant. So I recommend it all the time, I think, to people, and I haven't let anyone down yet. So
I have to check that out.
That would be my...
That sounds like it's right up my alley. So
totally.
Books, I'm gonna just opt out of books because most of the books I read are by Chip Heath and Dan Heath, and I read a lot of psychotherapy books and things like that. So I didn't buy a single pop culture book this year, so I really don't think I would have anything to say there. But you had a couple of recommendations this year, right?
I do. As usual, I bought more than I should have, or got more than I should have.
You also have better bookstores.
Do we? Well, maybe. One of them would be The Art of Solo, a Star Wars story, because regardless of how... I'm fascinated by where the concepts sort of come from for these things. Like, whether you like it or don't, The Force Awakens, the art of books is fascinating because you can see where they might have gone with these things, and pre-production sketches and concept paintings of what Luke would have looked like, and maybe this is, and you can see how what it might have been, and then what it's going to become, and so on. Well, again, not to harp on it too much, but with Solo, so much of this pre-production, a very specific sort of direction of what, like the fur coat that Han wears in the heist was an homage to Warren Beatty's character in McCabe and Mrs. Miller, the Robert Altman movie. The hot rod stuff is very American graffiti, but it's loaded with stuff like that where you're learning just a little bit more about how certain decisions were made or where this person's gun came from, and it's all very thought out, very methodical. I don't know how much was script or how much just sort of happened with these guys, but they were definitely given a direction. And I think one of the reasons you're saying it's so dark, they wanted it to be like a late 70s kind of movie. They wanted it to kind of feel like that, and more, not as much CGI, and more real creatures and things like that. So it's a great book. Eric Idle put out what he calls his sorta autobiography called Always Look on the Bright Side of Life, which is wonderful. It's very positive, and there's some great, not a ton of stuff that Python fans wouldn't know, but some great stuff in it. I happen to get a signed book, which I'm very excited about because I couldn't get to a signing, but then they have a very small number of pre-ordered books that would be ready for Christmas. And what I didn't realize was he signed it to me, to Jason, Eric Idle. And so I picked it up at a bookstore in Silver Lake, which I'm very happy. And then the book Marvelocity, Alex Ross's book Marvelocity.
I need to buy that book.
He's a dear friend, and I love getting stuff from him, and
I have his DC book. I need to buy that. Yeah.
So yeah, it is completely a companion to the DC book. It's 10 years later or whatever it was, 15 years later or whatever. That's exactly what this book is, and there's so much great stuff in there that either again, childhood stuff that's fascinating to look at, or things he does this. They include in here a proposal for the Fantastic Four, this new book that was going to get launched, and where he was going with, and it's very mod, like it's very mid-60s kind of coloring and looks to it and shading and just the design, and for some reason they didn't want to do it. But there's lots of great stuff in there like that, like these things that, Marvel might have said, no, I don't think we're going to do that, or change that logo or whatever, and Alex being Alex is like, no, I wanted to use that logo, and if you don't want to use it, then we're not going to do it. But it's loaded with fun stuff like that. So if you like the DC one, you'll dig it.
Very cool.
And then
you read a lot.
I do. Well, I'm technically not working right now, so that's I don't a lot of no. I work, I record and stuff, but it's only part of the day. So when I'm not doing voiceover, I've got time to either watch movies or grow a militia. That's about what I've got for choices.
You need a mustache for that. So why don't we move on to our favorite subject, toys?
All right.
And I'm going to go first.
You start.
Number 3 for me was the Blue Falcon by Figures Toy Company. Growing up, I loved the Blue Falcon and Dynamite show, even though I hated Dynamite. And for Figures Toy Company to make a Mego, which would have been definitely where you would have gone in 1977, Mego figure of that character, and I know they made a Dynamite, but I still am bitter about that character. So to get that figure in my hands and look at it 41 years later is like, yeah, this is perfect. And they really, really nail the cartoon characters. You can... there's folks who argue about some of the stuff they do, but everything they do, Super Friends or Hanna-Barbera, is just amazing. So,
yeah, their stuff is beautiful, beautiful stuff. Okay, so you're doing 3. Okay, so I had 4. Can I do 4? Okay, so one of mine would be, again, just to keep the theme going, the Star Wars Black 6-inch series. They did. I was kind of surprised just how much merchandise they made for Solo, a Star Wars story. They made cardboard play sets, which they haven't made in 20, 30 years for Star Wars. They did one cardboard play set, for the 4-inch figures that was at Target, one that was at Walmart. They did a good run of 6-inch figures and a beautiful run of the 4-inch figures. And I know you don't really collect the 4-inch stuff, but it was more that the detail on these little 4-inch figures, the second wave, actually both waves of the solo ones, but the second wave with, Woody Harrelson and Tandy Newton and the guy with 4 arms, Rio. In both waves, the new shading and the sculpting on these things is wonderful. So I was really thrilled that we got all that stuff. But tied then for number 3, or whatever you want to call it, was Disney stores do these figures called Toybox. They're about maybe 5-inch tall figures, and very articulated, kind of heavy figures. I really dig them, but they're stylized, almost like they all came out of a cartoon. They do them for Star Wars, they do them for Marvel, they do them for Marvel movies, they do Nightmare Before Christmas. I don't get them all, but certain ones I really dig, and I pick them up. Well, they made the Spider-Man Buggy. You
sent me a text of that.
Yeah, and it comes with a Spider-Man figure, and it makes sounds. I think his voice is in there, like, "Hey, I'm Spider-Man," maybe, but it's got car noises and stuff or whatever. But just again, that to me is a deep cut that somebody is winking at. I don't think kids would know what the Spider Buggy is, and it reminds me of the Mego stuff, the stuff that we grew up with. Which was it? How did it go? That the Mego did it first, and then it made its way into the comic, or vice versa?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, AHI may have made it first, and then it made its way into the comic. Not
a rack.
Yeah, like AHI may have been the first person. By the way, the Spider-Man car that Mego made is completely different to that Buggy, and the stuff like AHI was selling a lot of Batman stuff, like Batman and his Batboat, and Batman's such a beautiful template for toys that I think that's what happened. Is something, and like I've heard so many varying, conflicting reports, but basically, they wrote it into the story to try and sell more of it, but I don't think there's ever been a toy of it quite as authentic as that Hot Wheels. Like, prove me wrong, but that Spider car is very, very hard to find. So
the Hot Wheels one, there's a Hot Wheels one that they did.
That looks just like the one in the comic book.
So the one in the Disney store, then, that's got to be riffing on like an amalgam of the Mego and the Buggy from the the comic and whatever. It's kind of winking at those pre-existing buggies.
Like a lot of people made Spider-Man Jeeps in the 70s, and Corgi made one, and AHI, but none of them all had a superfluous look to them. But that one in the comic is specific, and Hot Wheels did that beautiful job of it.
Yeah, that's nice. What's your what's your number 2 then?
Super 7 did 3 3/4-inch Planet of the Apes figures. I have always wanted those, and now I have them.
Those are nice.
They're gorgeous. They have beautiful card art, and they are nice little 3 3/4-inch action figures. I haven't taken mine off the card because I don't wanna. But, I love them. I think they're great. And you had me at Planet of the Apes, but you made something that's kind of fun and funky, and they made a really kind of hilarious playset that harkens back to, the weird Kenner ones where it's just a hunk of plastic and cardboard, and they made fun of it by, releasing a box with a couple of, like, people in their 40s playing with it. Which, just like that alone made me buy it. Like when I got home.
Didn't you say, sorry, go ahead.
When I got home, my wife was kind of like, what the F is that? Is that a joke? And it's like, it kind of is. It sort of is, but it all kind of works, I
just loved her seeing that going, what the hell? Is that a grown man on the box?
That's what she said. Yeah, she's like, that's a grown man on the box. And
they're Super 7, man. They know what they're Brian and those guys. They know what they're doing, and a lot of love goes into that stuff. The Universal Monster stuff that they did, the original thing that they did, whatever I forget what it's called, the Scourge or the Scourge or something, or they do like 4-inch figures. They do the Robotech ones and the Planet of the Apes stuff. It's just beautiful stuff. And
what's
the artwork on the card and
two,
everything.
sir?
My number 2 is the NECA 8-inch figure of Captain Blake from The Fog.
That was awesome.
And I just, again, it's one of those, like, I never thought in a million years anybody would make anything from The Fog that this would happen one day. And I love Carpenter's stuff. So I just think it's wonderful.
I actually have never seen The Fog. Can you believe that?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
interesting.
I need to see it, but people, like, of course, I'm well entrenched in the Mego-verse, and people have been showing me their, this figure, and I keep thinking, like, wow, that I gotta actually see this movie because that figure is amazing. And
it's got light up eyes, and it's cloth outfit, and it's The Fog is an interesting. It's that interesting period there of, like, Halloween was massive. What's he going to do next? And it's this sort of transitional movie, but I think it did okay when it came out, but I think it's been one of those, like, forgotten.
It's like a sleeper. Yeah, they remade it. Remember?
Like
it
a sleeper.
Terrible.
They did remake it. That's right. No, it's a ton of fun. It's one of those sort of, could only happen in the, late 70s, early 80s kind of thing. So that's really cool that exists. What's your number 1?
My number 1 is going to be the Mego Monsters. Mego came back this year, which was a surprise even to me. And they did this Target exclusive, and folks were, the Target had some choices in their licensing and in their package design that folks kind of balked at, and rightfully so. I mean, I think some of them, it was very hit or miss. But they did a few things really right. And I think the choices Mego made were better than the choices that the retailer made. And now that I've seen, they're now free to sell to everyone, and their choices are getting better and better in terms of their package design and character choices. And and I really loved their monster line. It started with a really gorgeous Bela Lugosi Dracula. It followed up by a Frankenstein that was kind of a generic Frankenstein. And then the third one was the one that really clinched it for me, is that they chose Lon Chaney as the Wolfman, but not from the Universal. They chose him from this bizarre Mexican film that we know as Face of the Screaming Werewolf. Which is,
what is the story with that?
It is a
That's
Mexican comedy
how did
that he made when he was kind of, in the 50s. And then a notorious guy by the name of Jerry Warren, who made things like Wild, Wild World of the Batwoman and Frankenstein Island. And I love Jerry Warren movies because they're just terrible. But he made the... he took these Mexican movies and tried to spin them into like a logical kind of serious movie. It's not. It's terrible. It is a really terrible movie. But for Mego to release a Face of the Screaming Werewolf figure is so amazing. Like, I just couldn't believe that they went there. And, it just... They've done a lot of stuff I really like. But that one was like, all right, I'm in, So... Yeah. And then now they've got a new line of monsters where they've added like the Invisible Man and Freddy Krueger, and I think they've redone Dracula and Frankenstein. But I'm just excited that Mego is back and they're making these kind of fun characters again. So, I mean, it's been topsy-turvy for me, but this is still basically like, I think it's fun. So.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting that this stuff, I keep seeing the postings of like Muhammad Ali
Bruce
and
Lee.
Andre the Giant and Bruce Lee and all these, like, they're really it's really all coming together, and again, it's cool to live in a world that we're getting this stuff. My number 1 was something that I saw presented, I think, at Comic-Con, I want to say a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I'm not a big Mondo guy. I've got a few Mondo things, like prints. I don't do the vinyl or whatever else, but I do respect those guys or people, in the effort that they put out. But they're starting a line of 12-inch figures for Batman the Animated Series. And the first release is Batman from, the first animated series, not the Adventures of Batman and Robin sort of thing. So I had pre-ordered the 12-inch figure, what was the exclusive, the Mondo exclusive, that comes with an extra cape and a different head and some things, and, a barbecue grill and, stuff like that. So that it's beautiful. It's absolutely just gorgeous. Just the articulation and the detail.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, it's. I think they're doing the next one is Mr. Freeze, and then they're just gonna, and they do these limited runs. So I don't know if this is something you can still get. I know the exclusive is gone, but some of their stuff just goes so fast, and that's why I've stayed away from it, because it's just, I've got the Flash Gordon stuff that they did because those were sent to me, but they do some really nice stuff.
Oh yeah.
So I think that would be my number one.
Oh yeah, it's pretty beautiful.
And that leaves us. Yeah, you're looking at it.
Yeah,
it's nice, huh?
Yeah.
So that leaves us with DVDs.
Yeah,
that would be the last category, right? Okay,
and magazines. But I think we're
magazines. Okay.
Yeah. So my number.
Well, you know mine already. Mine's gonna be Swank.
Yeah.
We.
Oh my god.
Relaunched
yeah.
We.
The Gent.
Gent. Yeah, those are my three. So now let's hear. Okay,
I'm
let's
more of a
DVDs.
Jugs man myself, sir. Okay, I'm just gonna list my two favorite magazines. I don't have a three, because magazines are fleeting these days. Number two, Shock Cinema. Shock Cinema really scratches an itch that I wish more magazines did. They find obscure movies and they talk to people that I want to read interviews with. In fact, the last issue has not only John Schuck, but Monty Markham in the issue, which means that you've got the $7 Million Man and Yo-Yo. And
you show me another bit of entertainment that can book those two guys.
By the way, John Schuck is upset about Holmes and Yo-Yo because he never thought that Holmes should know Yo-Yo was a robot. He thought the series would be like a mystery every week. And you know what? That makes a lot of sense.
Now that I think about it, that show has gone down in my estimation now that I've heard what Schuck had to say.
Yeah.
It's not nearly the high concept that I thought it was.
You'll be tossing your bootlegs tonight. And my number one magazine would be Infinity, because if Pod Stallions had a magazine, it would look a lot like Infinity.
We keep joking about it, but it's ridiculous. Did you see the new one that's got the whole 4-page thing on Letraset, rub-down transfers?
No.
Oh my God, they got a 4-page article on British annuals. And the ones I've got like 4 of the ones in the article. It's like there's a lot of stuff that like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is not my bag at all. But there's usually enough. There's 4 or 5 other articles or reviews in there that are like they called us and said, "Hey, what do you guys want us to cover this month?
Yeah,
what would you like to see?" Yeah, it's beautifully done too.
Yeah, I'm always a month behind. That would be stuff.
Yeah, I'm finding it because they carried it like Barnes and Noble now. They're into the big chains and everything. So good for them. But yeah, I pick it up at the newsstand, and I'm a big magazine guy, so I have a stack here that I still haven't read through of music magazine stuff. But I guess Infinity would be on my list. Yes, and Mojo, but that's a music magazine. I get that every month. And I gotta say, I'm kind of digging the relaunch of Mad Magazine.
Really?
It's pretty vicious.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty vicious.
Career-wise,
in a way that.
Sorry, career-wise, that was one of my highlights when they put Rack Toys in Mad Magazine.
Oh, you mean the old Mad Magazine?
Yeah, the previous. One. Yeah. They put my.
You mean when you could order them out the back, or they put your book in there?
They put my book in there at one point, and I was like, yeah, okay, this is awesome.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Which now your book has become quite the quite the first edition for people to track down now.
Yes.
Quite the collectible. Okay, let's do DVDs.
Okay, and then I can go eat dinner.
We'll say goodbye.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to quickly go through my top 3. Is that cool? Because
okay,
I do have
that's
to
perfect.
Go.
That's what I'll do too.
Okay.
Perfect.
Number 3 is Dr. Dracula. Dr. Dracula is a 2-disc series from Vinegar Syndrome, and what it was there was a film unfinished. I think it's called Lucifer's Women. And then Al Adamson of Independent International, somebody I really adore, bought it and restructured it as a different film. So Vinegar Syndrome has put both films together on a Blu-ray set. Neither are very good, but it is really a fascinating bit of archaeology to watch. Like, this was this, and now it's this. And one of the more interesting things is the main protagonist of the film is the guy who played fake Kramer on Seinfeld. The TV Kramer.
Yeah, the skinny dude.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. Number two for me would be, and I'm not sure if I'm timely with this, is Network in the UK released the UFO Blu-rays, the Jerry Anderson's UFO. Massive fan of the series, obviously, if you've ever listened to this show. And I finally got it on Blu-ray, and luckily I have a multi-region player because it does not look like it's going to be released by Shout Factory anytime soon. They have the rights in the United States. Gorgeous, beautiful prints.
Okay, can I ask a question then?
Yeah.
Because I've never been able to get this answer.
Yeah.
So I've got a Blu-ray player,
Yeah.
which frankly is already crapping out after 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a multi-region player, and I've got multi-region DVDs. The multi-region player can play regular DVDs from the U.S. and Region 2, from the U.K. It cannot play Region 2 Blu-rays.
Oh.
So you have to get a Region 2 Blu-ray player, and when you do, will it play regular
I bought
Region 2
a
DVDs?
Blu-ray player from Canadian Tire called a Seiki, and it was a friend of mine told me to buy it, Kelly Forbes of the Garbage People podcast. And basically, you punch in a code, and I think it's 8502, and it'll play British or Italian or anything like that. Thing cost me $60. So that's
Oh wow!
Yeah,
okay.
And
Okay, I got to track that down.
yeah, I'll text you the information. And the
That would be great.
My number 1 Blu-ray of the year is the Blood Island box set by Severin Films.
I saw that coming.
Of course, just like I knew Solo was your number 1. I've talked about this a bunch of times, so I don't need to go on in long detail, but I love the Blood Island films. This was made for me, and $60 left my wallet like it was meant to happen, and I'm very grateful for it. What are your top 3 Blu-rays?
Was that before or after you found the mask, the Blood Island mask?
That was around the same time. It was all just a magical period.
Look at that. It's a magical year for you. DVDs, I'm going to say the Night Stalker / Night Strangler. What's it called? Carl Lorimar, whatever it was. Released 2
Kino
Blu-rays,
Lorber.
one for the original. Yes, Kino Lorber.
Yes.
First for the Night Stalker, then the Night Strangler. Hadn't seen either in a long, long time.
Yeah.
Boy, the Night Strangler is really dark, man.
Yeah.
The Strangler one is really, it's brutal now, for the time. But it's just, I love having them. And the cover artwork is incredible on those.
You know what's funny is
wish they would
I
do
stopped buying those because I went to a local used record shop, and I found the Night Strangler and the Night Stalker on DVD for like $5. And then I realized
nice.
that was somebody upgrading. Right? Like that they found
swapping them in.
Yeah, and I was like, damn it. And then it's like, well, yeah, I'm not gonna buy the Blu-rays.
Yeah, just mainly for the artwork too. Like the artwork on both of those is so nice. I wish they would put out a print of one of them or something.
Oh yeah, it's gorgeous.
Next would be the Batman the Animated Series Blu-ray set,
Oh
which
wow,
is gorgeous. And I got the one that comes with tiny little pop vinyl figures, which I don't really care about, but it's got, some postcards in it and shit. Great documentary on there about how the show even got up and running and what a miracle it was that it happened the way that it did. And just the miracle of having someone in, rights, standards and practices, saying, don't do this, but this is okay to do, and stretching the boundaries a bit. And it's part of how you got this extraordinary show that is just so ahead of itself, and you just appreciate how spectacular it is all over again. And then my number one would have to be Tom Baker's first season, the Blu-ray of Doctor Who, that first season of shows, to get that brand spanking new in one set.
I love that season. I love that season, and I just couldn't buy that Blu-ray because I have them all on DVDs. And I had them. Yeah, I wanted all. There's some fun stuff where he's sitting with Philip Hinchcliffe and Elizabeth Sladen's daughter and watching certain episodes and kind of talking about stuff. And for me, it was all about whatever extra I could get of Tom Baker, because on that note, today he's 85. Happy birthday, Tom Baker!
85th birthday.
We know he's a big listener.
Thank you. Yeah, he's a huge listener. Big fan. So that's now what we want from all of you is to go out and get all of this stuff.
Yep.
And scan the receipts, so we know you listen to the show and you're true believers.
And each of you that do that, if you buy everything we mentioned, we'll send you a decoder ring.
Yeah, and a no prize
for $14.95.
Right. Now we off camera. Brian and I have been talking. We're going to really amp things up this year with the podcast, and we're going to record again much sooner than usual. So we'll surprise you with something very soon.
Yep, we're going to use our whole ass this year.
Yeah.
And by saying that, we're making a verbal commitment to you, the listener.
And, saying it again, thank you guys so much for all the comments and for listening and suggestions. And we just love when we put these, well, I say we, when Brian does all the work and puts these things up. I love seeing the back and forth with people, and just, it's nice to know people are listening.
Yeah, the other day I posted something on Instagram, and somebody said to me, and I can't remember your username, but said, I really miss your guys' voices. And I thought, that is a really nice thing to hear. Like, that is an amazing thing to hear. Yeah, I thought I'd share that.
Yeah.
And you just sit there.
Yeah, it really is. Wow.
I'm really grateful that they did that, and we're going to try really hard.
Yeah. Because unfortunately, most people turn to me and say, could you stop talking?
Yeah. I get that all the time.
It's nice to hear that. Thank you so much. Yeah. All right. Happy New Year, Brian.
Happy New Year, Jason.
Go be with your family, and we'll talk very soon.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.